Welcome YouTube, it's Chobra, and it is now time to do our Pickems for VCT Pacific Kickoff 2026. Now, this year we have a triple elimination format, which means there's tons of matches, way more than we're used to determine 3 teams going to MASTERS Santiago. So there's a lot to get through, so without further ado, let's jump right in. And we don't know the exact schedule per day, so we're just going to try to go top to bottom as much as possible. And that means we start in the upper round 1 with Nongshim Red Force versus Team Secret. And say what you will about bias and whatever, but I think you'd be hard-pressed to vote for Secret here just because, I mean, Nongshim relatively keeping the roster. Listen, I don't think we need to go through this, right? I don't think it's that crazy to be picking Nongshim Red Force here, so we're going to go with Team Secret. Moving right along, Zeta Division versus Full Sense. I mean, I guess you could believe in the mini magic a little bit, but I don't think that's going to come through just in kickoff. You've got Shota, etc., but listen, Full Sense, I think clears just some firepower and also less of a roster change despite obviously a pretty big change in IGLing and coaching. I think Full Sense should be okay just through mechanics. Varel versus GE. I think this is the toughest one. I think this is a really tough matchup actually. Coming into this, because I think from what we've seen, you're leaning towards Varel, right? I mean, for one, Varel is keeping the same team that they had, into Ascension and last year's Challengers coming in. They're not making any roster changes, no coaching changes. Global Esports is a brand new team, more or less. You only have 2 remaining from the core of last year, and then you're adding in new combos. Now, some of them have played with each other, I believe, like Javi and Patman, back when they were both playing Challengers, but, it's not like there's not a triplet, there's not a full core that was playing together for, over a year. So there is that, but then you think about the individual quality that team has, how much faith you have in the, IGLing of Javi and the leadership of Autumn, and then, of course, Coach Frost, is he going to be able to cook up something enough? I mean, I think he's been with the team enough, although I guess the roster announcements were kind of trickled over the course. We don't know exactly how much time they've had to prep. It's not like it's not like a last couple weeks decision though. So they should have some time to prep. And these are all experienced players. I think that's the other thing. At least it's all experienced players. So I don't think he's going to have to go through what he did with, say, someone like Primi, where it's like, okay, he's super talented, but takes time to just understand what it takes to play a team game. So I don't think you'll have that issue. But I think, as much as I did rate for the course of the year, GE just a step above Varel, I think Varel wins this one. I think just they come in, guns blazing. I am very curious if Breeze is going to be a good map for Varel. They've never played it, right? It wasn't in the pool when they were playing. They've never played it as SLT Sungnam either, so very curious how that works. Sunset is also, just like Paper X, it's their best map. All of 25, they were undefeated on Sunset, so that leaving does hurt, but Breeze is like a super op-heavy map. I think even with the changes, it's still going to be a pretty good op map. Varel, very good with the op, very good with being able to trade long-range fights. So I'm going to go with Varel on this one. DFM versus Gen G. I'm excited for DFM, but we're going to go with Gen G on this one. I think DFM is going to take a little bit longer to find their groove, and even then, I don't think it's like they beat Gen G in a majority of matches. I think it's more like they can keep up a fight with Gen G at that point, maybe. So I am curious though how DFM will look. I think they're going to look better than perhaps some people think. I actually think I give okay credit to Cess as an IGL. I wouldn't say I'm high on Yatsuka and Kaide, but I would say that I'm excited for them. And personally, you know what? I'm fine still being, rating the new head coach quite highly, just because I've always liked the way he talked about the game and the way he's led his rosters, even if, maybe the success was a little bit underperforming from fan expectations. I just consider it, this is your big test, right? So I have no reason to doubt you any further. If it doesn't work out this year, then maybe I would have to rethink that. So that means we have our upper round 2 set. We don't have any matchups, but the first teams to fall to the middle round, right? Because it's triple elim. It's not the lower round yet. No one's getting eliminated after 2 matches. So that's Team Secret, Zeta, GE, and DFM remaining here. So to find out their opponents, let's go to the round 2. T1 versus Nongshim. This is T1. Listen, as much as I love the Nongshim guys, right? Obviously, I wasn't just not only on their payroll last year, but I was a big fan of the team and the players. T1 just looks really good. I don't think you're beating them, and I think players like Meteor and Munchkin are exactly the type of players that a team like Nongshim will have a hard time against. The kind of X factor, just gut read type players. I think that's going to be a little bit tough. And so, as much as, you know, like RB against Snacks and Buzz again, things like that type of matchup, it doesn't matter. Nongshim had a chance to try to beat T1 last year, couldn't close out the game. Sure, Nongshim's gotten better, so has T1. In fact, a lot, I think. DRX versus Full Sense. Now, as much as Full Sense has the firepower, I think this is where just a little bit more of that being together, having been IGLing under the same person for a little bit longer, things like that is going to help DRX. Although this could be a bloodbath. I could be like fully wrong about Full Sense. I think I just used to rate Cruz's IGLing really highly. And I'm not saying that whoever else is IGLing, which I think we're all presuming it's Jip Boys. I'm not saying that Jip Boys' IGLing is going to be bad. I'm not saying it's going to be garbage. But I think at this point in the big 2026 for Tier 1, if your IGLing has big stumbles, right? Even if it's like good for 5 rounds and then you get pressured and you kind of fall apart for 3 rounds and it requires a timeout, because then what happens is you have 12 rounds and a half. And when you have to use your timeout to fix your problems becomes a bit of that meta game where if you fix it too late and you still leave enough room for the opponent to answer, or you fix it too late where you're not able to actually gain back the advantage in that first half or the second half, it leaves an impact, right? It doesn't mean that you're actually that bad, right? Your actual grade could be, let's say, like a B-, but the resulting score will be a loss. And, you know, that's how I see it. That's how I see how quickly you're able to adjust round to round, and when you have to use your timeouts, how quickly you're able to learn off of that timeout, and then does the opponent have an opportunity to answer, right? Are you leaving them 3 rounds, or are you leaving them 5 rounds? Are you leaving yourself 3 rounds, or are you leaving yourself 5 rounds? Things like that. So I just don't think that's going to happen as smoothly. And I think it's not that I think Full Sense, I don't think Full Sense should be getting crushed by any team except like maybe Paper X and T1, right? At times, like not every time, but at times. Every other team, I think it's very likely that it's always a bloodbath. But if that's when I think, okay, well then, you know, like the full roster staying together, just being more experienced, the IGLing having more experience. I think things like that will be the difference maker. And I can very well see Full Sense being a type of team that's kind of unfortunately losing a lot of matches that they perhaps could have won. That's just where I stand on it. But anyway, this matchup, honestly, obviously there's other things going on in this matchup that I'm so over, but I guess that'll be something to look forward to for the fans of Pacific as well. So DRX moves on. Paper X versus Varel. Come on, listen, I know people want Patman versus Paper X, but I want Paper X versus one of the Ascension teams this year. Because last year we didn't get Paper X versus Nongshim for all the craziness. This year we have the opportunity to get Varel versus Paper X right from the start. That should be exciting, but as exciting as it should be, Paper X should win that. I would say actually pretty handily. Then, RRQ versus Gen G. Again, is this really happening again? But do I think TFM... man. I honestly think at the... I would have said if we didn't see Gen G at Radiant Invitational, I think I would have punted DFM to win here. But Gen G is finding the core foundation where they shouldn't drop below a certain point, so keeping them here, which means they'll move up, but I do think that means RRQ will go forward on this. Yeah. Yep, I think RRQ wins. I think they'll just be more stable. I think this will be kind of similar where it's like, yeah, it might be a little bit back and forth. It might be very close, but it'll just be RRQ that can close it out, in my opinion, compared to Gen G early on in the year. Later on in the year, I think things could be very different in this matchup. Okay, so while we do have... should we just go through? Maybe we should just go through. let's determine our first team to go to Masters Santiago. T1 versus DRX. I think you're matching up at the beginning of the year. As much as DRX, no changes coming in. I'm excited for Bane to be starting on the roster. I'm a huge Shunmin fan. Yada, yada, yada. I think T1 still wins. I think T1 just looks incredible. And I think riding that momentum off of the offseason is exactly when they could be the strongest, actually. I don't think they're going to fizzle out this year, but I do think this is probably one of their strongest forms they'll have in 2026 is going to be during kickoff. Also, Breeze comes in. Breeze, a map that the old Gen G team was very good at, a map that the old DRX was very good at. Stax, Buzz, Meteor, Munchkin, all very familiar with this map. And obviously, it is big changes. It is big changes, but I think it should be good. I'm assuming they're playing Breeze. I just realized I'm assuming they're playing Breeze at kickoff, at least for Pacific, because it's 2 weeks after. Not actually sure how it's going to work out for Americas, but I mean, I guess that's that. All right, PaperX versus RRQ. I think this is no question. PaperX was able to beat them at the end of last year. I think they will continue to do so given the upgrades they've had in firepower with Envy. And so that leaves us with T1 PaperX, which were, I think, mostly, maybe almost universally agreed as the top two teams right now in predictions for Pacific. Who wins here? Oh, in kickoff, I really think this could just be a coin flip. This could just be a coin flip. But if I had to pick, I'm going to go with T1 simply because I think Munchkin's going to have PaperX's number. Maybe I'm going the whole other direction after, for the last 5 years, right? The whole career of Munchkin and Valorant, I've just gone full 180 over the course of 5 years. Maybe I'm rating it too highly. But I mean, I also just think this is just going to be an absolute clash of powers here between T1 and PaperX. So I think this is a coin flip. I wouldn't feel bad either way. All right, Team Secret versus Gen G in the middle round. Round 1. Sorry, Secret. We have to do this at least 3 times because it's a triple elim, but I don't have much more to say. So we're going to have Gen G winning. Zeta Division versus Varel. This should be Varel absolutely barreling through that in terms of pure firepower. Global Esports versus Full Sense. Isn't this so good, chat? Right? We can get Varel PaperX and DeFrost versus Cruz instead of just Patman versus PaperX. This could be so good. I'm going to go with GE on this. I know early in the year, teams are gelling. Usually, this is where you want to favor firepower, which I do think Full Sense it has the advantage for sure. Like, not as in GE could never match them, but just on average, I think Full Sense is higher for sure. But I think the prep, right? Specific map pool. Frost having a very good idea of what Cruz is going to be taking away from what he's taught Cruz. And on top of that, what Cruz's other tendencies used to be against Frost. I think that understanding and knowing how to relay that and how to prep that specifically against him will be very fun. But also, this could be a good test for Cruz on, like, can you bring out the mind games? Can you kind of twist things a little bit to make it a bit unpredictable? Of course, also Leviathan as well. So, as a new player joining in. So, this should be exciting. I'm going to go with GE. I think most people, if they saw this matchup, would vote Full Sense. I'm fine with that. I'm just on the GE train. DFM versus Nongshim. I don't think it'll be easy because I do think DFM has a lot of firepower. But also, if in fact, as I talked about on Platchat as well, DFM maybe start to try to add more set plays and things like that, I think they'll become a little bit more readable. Although part of that is I think JoJo as an IGL, as much as I like him as an IGL, he's a very safe IGL. He's the IGL for Riddle Order, for those who don't know. So that's where the head coach, Vors, and Kaede and Yatsuka are coming from. I do think he was a bit of a slower IGL, very, very taking your time, making sure everything's set up. And I think that's one of the reasons why they struggled against teams like Nongshim or Varel. I don't think that'll happen as much with Cess, and also, just a full Japanese team. Granted, JoJo and Sultan were calming in Japanese, so that wasn't necessarily the issue there on Riddle Order. But I'm still going to go with Nongshim Red Force. I think they'll just have a little bit more X Factor throughout the entire roster. And I think Kaide and Yatsuka will still be getting adjusted just a little bit. That means Genji versus Vero rematch. They played against each other at SVL. Genji won 2-1, but they did get their butts blasted in the mid. Was it Haven? Granted, I guess their Haven was really bad back then, and it was 13-3. But I think on Abyss they also kind of returned the favor with a 13-6 against Vero, back then still known as SLT Songnam. So people will look at that and be like, okay, so Genji wasn't as good as we saw them at Radiant, and they still beat Vero. But I would say I could make the same argument in reverse of Vero, their first outing on an official stage against Tier 1 teams, still put up a good fight. Now they know where their weaknesses are. They've had time to prep it. I'm going to go with Vero. I'm going to go with Vero. I think they'll just play their game. Yes, the loss of Sunset hurts, but I actually think Vero will be okay on Breeze, on the new Breeze. I think so. So I'm going to go with Vero here, but either way, this is probably a 2-1. G versus Nongshim. Oh, Frost. Frost has always beaten Nongshim Red Force. Granted, it was Talon that always beat Nongshim Red, not just Frost, but this is tough. This is a tough one, I think, if this happens. The thing is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, actually. I don't think it matters. Because whoever wins, I think, loses to RRQ. I actually don't know. I mean, RRQ could come out looking the same, and that would be disappointing. That would be disappointing, though. I'm not gonna humor that possibility. It's possible, but I'm not gonna humor that. So we'll go with Nongshim here. GE still working things out. Oh, but I just rate the players like I rate Autumn really highly. I think Javi could still be getting used to things. Like, I think he still has a little bit more growth to find that consistency at a tier 1 level. But I mean, Yudo I think will be fine. Crystal wasn't as explosive as I thought he'd be last year, but I think he's safe. And then Patman is super reliable. So this one's tough. But again, it doesn't matter because I think RQ wins no matter who moves up, as long as they don't look exactly the same as they have all last year. And then Vero versus DRX, I think DRX wins. I think DRX will still be prepped enough to be able to shut them down. And that leaves us, excuse me, with DRX versus RRQ. Wow, these two now starting their own little storyline, own little love story after RRQ is able to send DRX to champions last year. And here, I'm going to pick DRX. There's a number of things you could talk about, but I really just think DRX is going to be a little bit more varied in their gameplay. And a lot of that comes down to how I see Hyunmin playing versus someone like Jemkin. I think Jemkin is still a safer player, whereas I think Hyunmin is still the... I mean, I'll do something crazy now. If I lose and I'm the one to blame, like, so be it, right? I see him as that type of player. I think that's what's needed to close out games at this stage of a tournament. So we'll go with DRX over RQ on that. And guess what? It doesn't matter because Paper X is beating whoever moves up. All right. Team C. Basically, the first two seeds were decided. It's either Paper X or T1 here, and then the other one here, in my opinion. But things can get a little dicey when we go to the lower round. Team Secret versus Zeta Division. The triple elimination is doing its work. It makes sure that we have to talk about these two teams, and then finally, it's a matchup to determine who's going to win. And in that case, do I raise Zeta's hand here? I rated them higher for the entire year, but do I give them the edge? It doesn't matter because GE's beating whoever moves up. But The individuals on Secret are fine, though. It's not like Zeta has... I mean, you've got, like, exciting prospects, you know, within the Japanese scene. Absol, Shota. But... I mean, I'm not expecting them to be Mei, for instance, right? I'm not expecting them to have the impact of, like, something on his debut. And in that case, maybe I rate Secret a bit higher. Maybe. And Jesse Vash, if he's on the roster, I think they will have a decent floor, actually. You know what? I'm going to go with Secret here. I know I rated Zeta higher for the whole year, and I stand by that. But in this matchup, in Kickoff, specifically in Kickoff, I'm going to go with Secret. Full Sense versus DFM. This will most likely come down to a bunch of crazy gunfights. I'm gonna punt DFM on this one. I know I rated them higher for the full year as well. Actually, maybe that's just the same reason. Oh... But Full Sense is just so much stronger individually in the actual head-to-head matchup. But I think Mei will be so much freer to do what he wants on this new roster. I know, obviously, there's Premium on Full Sense. I'm going to go with DFM. I think Full Sense is the right pick here, but in the head-to-head. But I'm going to go with DFM. And then in the lower round 2, we have GE versus Secret. Yeah, no matter who moves up, GE is winning that matchup. And then it is DFM versus Gen G. Gen G will be winning that one. It's actually a rematch. I think they win again. That's what I wanted to double check. And that means GE versus Veryl, a rematch. As much as it's a rematch, I think Veryl wins within Kickoff again. And Genji versus Nongshim, I'm going to give Nongshim Red Force on this one. I'm going to go to Nongshim. And that also gives us our nice little Veryl versus Nongshim matchup that we didn't get at Ascension. So that'll be fun. In this one, I do give it to Nongshim simply because at that point, right, they have kind of similar strengths. I would say Veryl is a little bit stronger on the whole fundamental part. I think Nongshim's a little stronger on comps and set plays. But also, I think that is where the year of experience for Nongshim will pull through against Veryl. Especially because it's on a Pacific stage, not an Ascension stage. I think that matters a little bit in the mental pressure. So then a Nongshim RRQ rematch, correct? Yeah, and not long after. Could Nongshim beat them again? I don't think so. Wow, I don't know why I clicked that. I was literally about to say I don't think so, and I clicked Nongshim Red Force. I don't think so, although that just means it's rematch after rematch. But I guess when you're down to this few teams, you can't help it. In some ways, it's cool. You get immediate rematches to see if you can get the revenge, and it matters. Because you're going to... Now it's a BO5. I'm okay with that. So RRQ beats the rematch still against Nongshim. I think just a little bit more stability from RRQ. I think it's going to matter quite a bit. And that brings us to RQ versus DRX. Oh, who are we sending? Who do we send to MASTERS Santiago? I just think in a BO5, I think DRX will be a little bit better prepped on Breeze, though. I mean, the map's so different, though. I don't know if you can really count the old familiarity, because there's no halls, and I think a lot of... Well, actually, maybe not too many. Probably not any of those map-wide. The map-wide lineups probably haven't changed much for Sova. There are some changes, though, right? Like, there's some more overhangs. Some of the walls are jutting out a little bit further. Obviously, for A-side, things are going to be quite different. But I think also with what's like popular right now, a lot of double duelist, things like that. It's either that or double controller. I think RQ has the advantage in a double controller comp, assuming the second one's a Viper, where Xfero would play, and then you just wouldn't play a Senti. That's a slight edge, but it shoehorns you into that, which is fine on most maps. For DRX, mostly double duelist probably. I'm gonna give it to DRX. That means it's just T1 Paper X DRX. That's so boring, though. That is so boring. That's super boring. That's super. Should we give RQ a little redemption? See if they can do something at MASTERS Santiago? But as much as I rate Jovi really highly as a coach, I do think coaching changes take time to have impact. And obviously he's been with them, for a decent amount of actual time in the off season, but a lot of their off season outings had other conditions where either Crazy Guy wasn't with them or he had to join them, right before. So for SVL, they didn't have that much time to really grind together, things like that. So I think it'll take some time. So I'm gonna go with DRX, as boring as it is. Oh, that ended up being boring. But you know what? I'm liking the triple elim because as much as the result is boring, I think the journey was quite exciting. And while we have several rematches here, the revenge story is quite good because now it's just do or die time to get to MASTERS Santiago. So there you have it. This is my bracket. There's the upper bracket, T1, going all the way through. Then you have Paper X basically defending their chance after losing to T1, just playing a second BO5. I do believe, chat, I think we looked at the overall schedule, right? Where the way it works out is this match is played, then this match the next day, and that. I think we know that just because of the order of how things pan out. Or maybe we do have the schedule for overall matches. We just don't know. We just didn't know which teams were placed where. But so that is like 2 back-to-back days of BO5s. That is tough. That is tough. But if you win here, at least you're avoiding the 3. So we've got a little bit of a scuffle going on in the middle round, but at the end of the day, Paper X defends their spot. And then it's really kind of... for me, if the bracket works out this way, it'd be a story for the likes of GE, Veril, and Nongshim, and Gen.G, I guess, to see can we punch back up against RQ and DRX. That would be kind of the storyline of this lower bracket, those 4 teams. I have Veril and Nongshim taking those shots, but... I mean, it could very well be Gen.G. It could be GE. And then they move onward. So, yeah. Is Veril going to beat Gen.G? I think it's fair for most people to vote for Gen.G against Veril, just because obviously they've already played against each other once before. But I think Veril's going to have learned enough. I'm really big on Veril at the beginning of the year. I'm very big on them. So there you have it. Those are my pickems. We will set up a group, put it in the description down below so you can join and we can compare against each other in the community. I'll post that on Discord as well once it goes up. And then we'll keep track of this once kickoff starts to see who actually makes it all the way through to MASTERS Santiago. But if you enjoyed this video, a like is always super helpful to helping grow the channel. And of course, let me know down in the comments below who you think will be the 3 teams going to MASTERS Santiago from Pacific. That's going to be it for this one. We'll see you on the next video.